Sandra Perry was looking forward to a life of leisure. Her 3 children had grown up and left home, but at the age of just 52, she was diagnosed with a rare form of dementia. 3 years on, she's full of smiles, but unable to speak or feed herself. And to mark World Alzheimer's Day tomorrow, we sent our reporter Marcus White to meet Sandra and her son Robert at her care home in Southbourne.
This disease, it's very rare. I mean, you can be in your 30s, 40s or 50s, I think, when you get diagnosed. And it's nothing really. She was looking forward to her retirement. She'd worked hard her whole life, and this disease just sort of came along and sort of wiped that all out. So, very sad. Just going to pop you in the lounge in, Mum. Okay. There's lots of sort of subtle things we noticed. She'd be sort of sending letters without stamps on and getting locked out of the house a couple of times, burning dinners and things. So I remember asking her how she felt. She said she felt very alone during this period. So I think she was aware she was changing. She had an MRI scan and that showed frontotemporal dementia. So. That's it, well done. Okay. Maybe about 4 months after diagnosis, her speech went completely. So she was mute, and within a year, we had to organise everything for her. She'd completely lost her autonomy, I guess. We were having to, plan a day for her, feed her, bath her, dress her, pretty much do absolutely everything. But I think there came a point when it became quite a lot of strain, so we contacted social services and we put in a sort of care structure in place. We noticed pretty soon after diagnosis that Mum's sense of humour had changed quite a lot, and she was liking a lot more sort of immature sense of humour, and we noticed that she was responding really well to music as well. And we'd sit and watch music channels with her, and I remember Ollie Murs coming on. I think it was Dance With Me Tonight.
My name is Ali, nice to meet you, can I tell you, baby? Look around, there's a whole lot of pretty ladies, but none like you, you shine so bright.
He was coming to Bournemouth, to Castle Point at Waterstones. The following week, we got access to, Ollie Murs. We were able to beat all the queues and go in. He gave her a kiss and things and signed her book. She was absolutely, beside herself with joy at the time.
I just want you to dance with me tonight.
How much of your mum is left now?
That's a good question, really. I guess I try and gauge that by her warmth now, and she still holds my hand. She likes holding all our hands and clinging on to us when she's walking, and sort of laughing with us and smiling with us. But obviously what we all valued in Mum, I guess that sort of caring and empathy. And that disease has just completely taken all of that away. And but I still do think she's in there. Whenever she sees any of her family members when we come and visit, she absolutely beams. I always think that she's still in there somewhere. Okay. You sit and watch this on the TV then. You like this? Okay.
It's like stepping back in time.
Well done.
Only a much greener place to visit.
You are nice and warm, aren't you? Yeah. No, we've just been sat in there.
Robert talking about his mum to our reporter Marcus White, and I'm joined now by Dr. Laura Phipps from Alzheimer's Research UK. Morning, Laura.
Morning.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. So, she's in there somewhere, says Robert. What's your reaction to what you've just heard?
Yeah, I mean, Rob's obviously, they're an absolutely inspirational family, and what they've gone through is heartbreaking. But, the sad reality is that the families are going through this all over the UK, because dementia doesn't just affect an individual, it affects whole families, and you can hear how the family have had to adapt, but how there are parts of her behaviour and her personality that still shine through, and I think that's what you have to hold on to, really, and that's what they're doing.
And the thing that strikes me from this story is also Sandra's age at 52. And what is that unusual?
Well, she has a form of dementia called frontotemporal dementia, which is one of the rarer forms of dementia, so it probably accounts for around 5% of all cases of dementia, but it does tend to be common in people of a younger age. And there's also some forms of Alzheimer's disease that affect people at a younger age. So I think it's a bit of a myth that dementia only affects people who are very old. It can affect people who are working with young families, and so it can be particularly devastating in these cases.
And initially, Sandra was given antidepressants and counselling, Laura. So what does that say?
Well, with frontotemporal dementia, because it often has early symptoms that are quite different to other forms of dementia, so it's not always the memory loss that we associate with, say, Alzheimer's disease. But as Rob mentioned, things like personality change and behaviour changes. So he mentioned loss of empathy, change in sense of humour, and often these can make frontotemporal dementia particularly difficult to pick up in the clinic at the early stage. So people can often be given a diagnosis of depression first, and then obviously as the disease progresses it becomes more obvious that there's something more serious underlying that.
And the sad thing about that, Laura, is that you may then change your relationship with that relative for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people that you talk to who families have been affected by frontotemporal dementia have found that, sadly people are asked to leave their jobs or may find themselves, in trouble with the police, and it's unclear to the family and friends at the time why that is, but often then afterwards it does become more clear.
Yeah. And Sandra's family and Robert managed to get free care because they were just under the threshold, but for some families it's a real financial burden, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is, and the earlier that people can get access to help and support, then the better, really, to help them put measures in place.
And then a cure. You're bound to be asked this during this next week as well. Are we any closer?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually research into frontotemporal dementia is making real progress in the UK. Particularly we have a lot of expertise there. And Alzheimer's Research UK is funding research into all forms of dementia, so Alzheimer's and frontotemporal dementia, all across the UK. And we are making real progress. There's genetic breakthroughs that are helping us to understand risk factors. There's improvements in diagnosis that are coming through. So there's definitely reasons to be positive.
And Laura, there'll be people listening this morning who either are thinking about their own condition or are thinking about a relative. Just listening to you on the radio right now, maybe a change in personality or problems with remembering things and so on. What's your message to them this morning?
I would say anybody who's concerned about a relative who is showing some symptoms or behaving out of character, it is worth going to the GP, because there can be lots of reasons why people can change their personality or appear to have memory problems that aren't dementia, and so it's important to rule those out. We have lots of information on our website as well at alzheimersresearchuk.org. And for World Alzheimer's Day tomorrow, we've launched a new blog so that people can read more about other people's stories about dementia, about research that's taking place. So I'd encourage people to visit that as well. That's dementiablog.org.
That's really useful. Laura, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really grateful to you, and I wish you well with your day tomorrow too. Dr. Laura Phipps joining us from Alzheimer's Research UK. And if you're listening to that at the moment, maybe that's something you're going through at this moment in your family, I'd love to hear from you today. You can pick up the phone and call 0345 30 30 961. Text Solent to 81333. And perhaps listening to Robert talking about his mum Sandra in that piece with Marcus White just then, maybe that will prompt you to pick up the phone as well. Let me know, or in fact you can text Solent to 81333 with your comments. Email julianclegg@bbc.co.uk.